The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news comes to you compliments of KFC. It's finger licking good. With the news, I am Ruth Wilson. Good evening. First, the highlights. The price of flour has gone up. Former President Donald Ramotar and Vice President Bar Jagdeo are at odds over whether Russia should have invaded Ukraine. And electricity bills will not be increased. In the region, a large quantity of cocaine from Suriname has turned up in the Netherlands. And the British Virgin Islands opposition wants the United States to verify its agricultural produce. Details of these and other stories, including the international news from the BBC, in a moment.
Hit to stand in lines? Don't worry. KFC has got you covered with their drive-thrus, which are open now from 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. at Movietown, Vlissingen Road, Mandela Avenue, Reading Hoop, Parika, and the Amazonia Mall. That's right, you can drive through at 6 of their 9 locations. Remember, their current opening hours are 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. Go on down and let your taste buds savor the spices today. KFC.
It's finger licking good.
And now for the news in detail. The National Milling Company, Namilco, says the price of flour has been increased by 15%. The company says this is due to a steep increase in the price of wheat, largely due to the war between Russia and Ukraine. The company notes that the price of wheat has skyrocketed by 40% since February 15. Namilco says the costs of packaging, additives, and fuel have also increased. The company says it will try to take advantage of wheat shipments to this part of the world in order to get lowest possible freight prices. The People's National Congress Reform PNCR leader Aubrey Norton on Wednesday credited his now 3-month-long leadership with establishing party groups across Guyana. He's also gearing up to put behind the 2020 general election campaign that he deemed the poorest run. Already, he says that party groups are being established countrywide and plans are being made to accelerate training of party members and boosting the media and communications machinery. In an interactive session with party supporters at a town hall meeting in Brooklyn, New York, he bemoaned the condition of the party that he inherited, saying that the office and boardroom of the leader had fallen into disrepair and had to be overhauled overnight in time to accept visiting diplomats. Mr. Norton also said Congress Place, the PNCR's headquarters at Sophia, barely had a few junior workers who were guards, drivers, clerks, and handymen. The PNCR, which is the largest partner in the opposition coalition of a Partnership for National Unity, Alliance for Change, APNU-AFC, he said had run a sloppy election campaign for the March 2020 polls. He said the party seemed to have focused heavily on rallies rather than organizing ordinary people in communities. He partly attributed that to the marginalization of a lot of persons who knew political work. President Irfan Ali says he wants members of the police force to be paid incentives for improved performance. He says apart from earning more money as a result of promotions, the government wants to put a system in place for them to be rewarded for success in fighting crimes.
I've asked the Minister of Home Affairs to develop a policy on an incentive-based performance system for the Guyana Police Force that is linked to reward. We have seen how this has helped in countries like Rwanda. It's changed dramatically the image of the law enforcement entity, and it has brought results. So whilst we have an average time of 5-6 years, persons moving up the ranks, there must be a mechanism in which emoluments is affected other than promotion.
The president says in return, a highly trained police force will have to demonstrate commitment. Former President Donald Ramotar and Vice President Bar Jagdeo are at odds over whether Russia was right to invade Ukraine. Mr. Ramotar says that Ukraine was wrong to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, in clear violation of an agreement and warnings by Russia.
Of course, all of us hate war and all of us would wish that Russia was not in Ukraine and that what is happening there was not happening. It's terrible. But it could end tomorrow if Russia is given their security guarantee. It could end tomorrow. That is the crux of the matter. And therefore, to talk only about Russia in Ukraine without talking about Russia's legitimate right to security, I believe is not making a contribution to resolving this problem.
But Vice President Jagdeo, who was trained in Russia, says Ukraine has a right to decide who it forms relations with as an independent country.
Donald said that the history of the matter in Ukraine is grounded in history. And so too is the Venezuelan aggression against our country. So too is the Venezuelan. They can claim it's grounded in history. And should we say that just history, because you have a dispute between a neighboring country, then the history justifies intervention in a country, then what do we do? Who will be our friends when Venezuela decides to take this very same route in Guyana's case?
Meanwhile, Vice President Bar Jagdeo last night ruled out an increase in electricity bills due to the rising cost of fuel. Earlier this week, the state-owned Guyana Power and Light said that its fuel bill was increasing as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war. The power company has said that the cost of fuel was no longer sustainable when compared to earnings. Mr. Jagdeo last night told an event to mark the death anniversary of the People's Progressive Party's founder-leader, Chile Jagan, that the government would step in.
With all the escalating prices now, we've been hit hard by cost of living, but the world has been hit by this because of COVID, and prices have gone up. But and now with the Russian Ukrainian crisis, it would even probably go up more. But we will keep the electricity prices the same way, and water prices, because we'd have to subsidize it to make sure that the impact is not felt by ordinary people.
Vice President Bar Jagdeo. The Guyana Elections Commission says it will allow persons who are 14 to 17 years old and are not vaccinated to enter its offices to be registered. GCOM says it is aware that national registration of all eligible persons is a legal requirement, as it is a constitutional obligation for it to register such persons. At the same time, GCOM says it sees the need to ensure the protection and safety of its staff. The elections management body says before the registration exercise started, internal COVID-19 guidelines aimed at protecting GCOM registration personnel were prepared and circulated to all GCOM registration offices for compliance. Recognizing that many persons in the 14 to 17 years old age range might not have been able to be vaccinated because they do not have national identification cards because they were never registered, a decision was taken to waive the vaccination requirement for this age group. GCOM says this decision was taken in consultation with the respective chief scrutineers of the Partnership for National Unity, Alliance for Change, APNU-AFC, and the People's Progressive Party, PPP. GCOM, however, says that persons 18 years and over must be fully vaccinated in order to visit any GCOM registration office to conduct registration transactions. The matter will come up for discussion again next week. A security guard is hospitalized in a serious but stable condition after he was chopped several times by two men while on duty at a school in Linden. Injured is 26-year-old Swain David of Wisma Linden. He told police that he was attacked by the two men while he was in the guard hut at about 4:30 Thursday morning at the St. Aidan's Primary School, Blueberry Hill, Wismar. Police were told that Mr. David was sleeping in the hut when he was chopped to his head and left hand. He told police that he managed to run away and went to the Wismar Hospital complex and eventually referred to Georgetown Public Hospital. His condition was regarded as serious but stable. The police say it is unclear at this stage what is the motive behind this incident. Investigations continue. You're with us on News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM, Facebook page and YouTube channel. It is 18 hours 11. We now turn to news in the region. Another shipment of cocaine from Suriname has been intercepted at the Netherlands port of Rotterdam. Customs seized 400 kilos of cocaine during a check on Wednesday. The Public Prosecution Service of the Netherlands says the street value of the party is 30 million euros. The batch of coke was hidden in a container loaded with gift items from Suriname. Customs found 3.5 kilos of cocaine in the shipment itself. The Barbados government was forced to shut down its entire information technology platform on Thursday after ransomware found its way through several vulnerable holes in the system. Ransomware is malware that employs encryption to hold a victim's information at ransom. A user of organization's critical data is encrypted so that they cannot access files, databases, or applications. A ransom is then demanded to provide access. Ransomware is often designed to spread across a network and target database and file servers and can thus quickly paralyze an entire organization. The ransomware that attacked on Thursday forced the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology to take its overall internet service offline so the issues could be identified. In an interview with the Weekend in Nation Barbados, Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology Davidson Ishmael said that based on preliminary findings, the system was not a hack orchestrated by an outside or international source attempting to enter the system. Venezuela Vice President Delcy Rodriguez and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met on Thursday to review their country's strategic alliance. She also said on Twitter that they discussed the complex international situation. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has expressed support for Russian President Vladimir Putin since Moscow launched an invasion of Ukraine on February 24. The meeting between Rodriguez and Lavrov took place 5 days after U.S. officials met Maduro and suggested Caracas deliver some of its oil exports to the United States as part of an agreement to ease sanctions against the OPEC member country. Earlier, Sergei Malek Bagdasarov, Russia's ambassador to Venezuela, wrote in a Twitter message that the meeting took place in Turkey and published an image of Rodriguez and Lavrov walking side by side. He gave no details of the meeting, which Venezuela Foreign Minister Felix Plasencia also attended. Venezuela's Ministry of Communication and Information did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Maduro has accused NATO and the United States of causing the crisis over Ukraine, arguing they flouted the Minsk agreement that aimed to end a conflict that began in 2014 between pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine and the Kyiv government. We now move over to news in the British Virgin Islands. Leader of the opposition, Marlon Penn, says the Virgin Islands should look into getting local produce certified by the United States Food and Drug Administration, FDA. In his contribution to the debate on the Food Security and Sustainability Bill introduced in the House of Assembly yesterday, Penn said FDA-certified food could help with the ease of exportation and trade of agricultural products from the territory. BVI News quotes him as saying that this will provide the British Virgin Islands with the opportunity to export more produce to the United States Virgin Islands and other regions that can support and grow these industries. The opposition leader said while it is important to think of small-scale development to support and sustain the people of the territory, it is also pertinent that the government looks for opportunities in the foreign market. The BVI opposition leader also wants the government to enforce legislation to ensure food security. In his contribution, Penn also noted the act seeks to create a regulatory body for the agricultural department. He added that the government must look at ways where the regulatory body could create and generate revenues for itself. U.S. Customs and Border Protection (CBP) officers seized a package with a hardcover high school cookbook with cocaine hidden inside. Officials said several of the recipes in the multicultural cuisine of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean were cut out to make room for a rectangular packet of cocaine weighing 147.6 grams. Officers at an express consignment hub in Memphis, Tennessee, made the discovery on February 17. The shipment originated in Trinidad and Tobago and was being sent to an address in the Little Caribbean neighborhood of New York City. Loop News reports that Area Port Director Michael Neppert said smugglers find innovative ways to conceal drugs and other illegal items. Officials were able to catch the suspicious items as U.S. importers provide advance information about container cargo, express consignment shipments, and some international mail parcels bound for the United States. The Customs and Border Protection uses the data to target and intercept high-risk shipments. U.S. Customs said personnel are trained to identify patterns and red flags that enable them to intercept shipments that may contain illicit and potentially dangerous goods. And now St. Lucia. One man is dead and 3 others are nursing injuries in hospital after gun violence erupted in Vieux Fort in the Clark Street area Thursday afternoon. Police have identified the deceased as 22-year-old DeWitt Charles of West Hall Group, Vieux Fort. The 3 men who sustained injuries due to the shooting, believed to be gang-related, have not been officially identified. But according to reports, they were in stable condition when transported to the hospital. At 18 hours 17, we now turn to international news from the BBC.
BBC News, I'm John Shea. The G7 group of leading industrial nations and the European Union are imposing further restrictions on trade with Russia in response to the invasion of Ukraine. The latest measures will allow them to ban or impose punitive tariffs on Russian exports. President Biden said Vladimir Putin must pay the price for aggression. Barbara Platt-Usher reports from Washington.
President Biden said the United States would revoke Russia's most favored nation status, which is a baseline for global trade. That means the U.S. can impose higher tariffs on some Russian goods. By itself, this won't have a significant impact because America doesn't have that much trade with Russia. But allies in Europe and the G7 nations are moving towards similar measures, which would have a more dramatic effect. They're also seeking to deny Moscow the ability to borrow from international financial institutions.
The UN disarmament chief has dismissed allegations by Russia that Ukraine is trying to develop a biological weapon with the help of the United States. Izumi Nakamitsu told the Security Council there was no evidence of such activity in Ukraine. The Russian ambassador talked of a network of biological research centres in Ukraine. The British envoy Barbara Woodward strongly condemned the Russian government.
Russia is sinking to new depths today, but this council must not get dragged down with it. We do not sit in this chamber to be an audience for Russia's domestic propaganda, and we should not allow Russia to abuse its permanent seat to spread disinformation and lies and pervert the purpose of the Security Council.
The authorities in the besieged southern Ukrainian port of Mariupol say more than 1,500 civilians have been killed during 12 days of bombardment by Russian forces. The Interior Ministry described the situation in the city as critical. Mary Akopyan is Ukraine's Deputy Interior Minister.
Mariupol fell into the trap of humanitarian catastrophe. All attempts to deliver food and medicine to our citizens are blocked by the Russian army. We were trying to organize and form columns with white flags As soon as such an intention is manifested on the Ukrainian part, the Russian army opened demonstrative fire from machine guns and mortars on the movement of such columns.
The US State Department says any Russian deployment of Syrian fighters in Ukraine would mark a further escalation of Moscow's unjustified and unprovoked aggression. A spokesman said it would also show that President Putin had made fundamental miscalculations in choosing war over diplomacy. Earlier, Mr. Putin said Russia should facilitate the transfer from the Middle East of thousands of people described as volunteers to fight alongside Russian troops in Ukraine. World News from the BBC. Russia has announced a ban on Instagram after a change of rules by its parent company, Meta, to allow violent speech in relation to the invasion of Ukraine. The media regulator said the ban would take effect on Monday. A senior Meta executive said the rule change was designed to protect expressions of self-defence in reaction to a military invasion. In other news, the Saudi Arabian blogger Raif Badawi has been freed from prison after serving a 10-year sentence on charges of insulting Islam. The news was announced by his wife, Ensaf Haidar, who led an international campaign for his release. Mr. Badawi was arrested in 2012 over an online forum he started to debate political, social and religious issues. His case attracted worldwide attention. The former student protest leader Gabriel Boric has been sworn in as the youngest ever president of Chile. Mr. Boric, who's 36, has promised to overhaul Chile's market-led economic model, which dates back to the time of the former military ruler Augusto Pinochet. Katie Watson reports.
This is a historic day for Chile. Gabriel Boric rose to prominence as a protest leader when he was a law student. Now he has a huge task ahead of him, trying to fulfill his promises of turning around a country that, while economically stable, masked huge inequalities which led to mass protests in 2019. Mr. Boric's toughest challenge will be sustaining economic growth while delivering on promises of tax reforms and pension overhauls, as well as tougher environmental regulations.
Security sources in Burkina Faso say at least 10 people have been killed by suspected Islamist militants. They said the insurgents attacked an illegal gold mine near the border with Niger. Several Islamist groups operate in the border areas between Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso. And that's the latest BBC World News.
And that's the news to the moment.
KFC delivery is now available from the Amazonia location for shore-based Little Diamond residents. Call 632-0533, 632-0533, 6080-162, 6080-162, or 503-3591, 503-3591. That's KFC's delivery service from the Amazonia location. KFC.
It's finger-licking good.
To end the news, here's a recap of the highlights. The price of flour has gone up. Former President Donald Ramotar and Vice President Bar Jagdeo are at odds over whether Russia should have invaded Ukraine. And electricity bills will not be increased. In the region, a large quantity of cocaine from Suriname has turned up in the Netherlands. And the British Virgin Islands opposition wants the United States to certify its agricultural produce. The news came to you compliments of KFC. It's finger-licking good.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.